Okay. I think we'll let people trickle in as they can, but we'll get started. Thank you so much for joining day 2 of the Marshall Scholarship Virtual Summit. Hopefully some of you were able to join us yesterday as well. Today we have the chair of the Chicago Marshall Selection Committee to open today's session. So I will let her take it away. We should have time for a couple of questions afterwards.
Yep, absolutely. So hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jennifer Caston, and I am the newly appointed chair of the Chicago Regional Selection Committee. So I've not yet come into my full powers. I'm not yet drunk with the authority, but I do want to give an overview of how amazing the Marshall Scholarship is, what we're looking for in terms of selecting candidates. And then at the end, I definitely would like to take some questions. So please feel free to either type into the chat and Hillary can MC, or if you need to, you can raise the hand and we can do it over Zoom like this. So I am a medical doctor and I won the scholarship back in '02. And I spent my first year at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where I trained up as an infectious disease epidemiologist, mostly actually as a malariologist. And then I subsequently got to work kind of all over the world on that. But it's been interesting because a couple years ago, if I said I trained up as an infectious disease epidemiologist, everyone would say, "What's that?" And now this little thing's been going on. You might have heard about it in the news. And so now people say, "Oh yeah, I do some of that in my spare time." Yeah. And anyway, so I subsequently went to Oxford and I was at Christ Church, Oxford, where I got a master's in the history of medicine and science. And so what I want to tell you all first and foremost about winning this scholarship is that it will make your world so much larger. I felt this incredible sense of anticipation as I was finishing college and then the summer before we all went over. I felt like someone had just opened a book and lit a lamp and said, "Come see the world." And that's honestly, that's exactly what happened. You know, my world expanded. It's almost like a diagram of the universe where it's expanding out into the void. And it's not so much that, oh, I'd never been abroad, I'd never traveled. Oh, I certainly had. It's not so much that I'd never been in a challenging academic environment. I certainly had. It's not so much that I'd never been with interesting, challenging colleagues. I certainly had. It's just this sense that the world is enormous. You get to explore every corner of it. You get to meet the most interesting, fascinating people. You get put in situations that are frankly surreal. You get to enjoy, in the richest and deepest sense of the world, the fabulous country that is the United Kingdom. I'm someone who loves being outside. And so I ended up hiking and walking out rough, like several hundred miles across the UK. I walked across all of Scotland. I walked up the coasts. I bagged a lot of the Munros, as they're called in Scotland, climbing the peaks. I climbed most of the peaks in North Wales. I went to lots of villages and lots of corners of the UK, stayed out in rough, like crofters' cottages and did all of that. So I got to see it from a geographical perspective. And then I got to see it and know it from the political and sort of the demographic perspective as well. And in addition, you know, most of us will tell you stories. I'm happy to tell you some of mine about studying in the UK. And again, there are moments where you simply pinch yourself and you say, can this possibly be my life? And one of them for me was, I was at Christ Church, Oxford, which is like a very storied college at Oxford. And it has this unbelievably beautiful staircase carved, you know, it's a 16th century college mostly. And so the architecture is kind of Tudor. And they used it for the Harry Potter films, which I think most people have probably seen. And there was one night where we had to go to dinner every night in black subfusc, the academic dress. We're one of the few colleges that had to do that. And they had it lit only by candles going up that stone staircase. And the choir was out, and it's an excellent semi-professional choir singing madrigals as we sort of ascended the staircase to go to dinner in the Tudor Great Hall. And you're just like, oh, is this my life, you know? And again, I hope every single person who's been on this scholarship will have stories akin to that. And if you all win and are selected, you're going to have your own cadre of stories that will just shape you for the rest of your life. So I do want to talk a little bit about how we select candidates, just in very broad terms. You've probably heard a little bit that we do divide the United States up into regional selection committees. So there's 8 in the United States. You can apply either from your location of permanent residence, which for many of you, if you're still in college, it'll be your parents' residence. If you're out of college and you're working, you're on your own, it'll be your own residence. Or you can apply from the location in which you're going to college. So either or. Chicago is my region, as I've said. We're basically all of the Midwest with Kentucky added on as a little vestigial appendage. And I say that with great love because I'm a lifelong Kentuckian. So we really, our region goes from Kentucky all the way out through the prairies, all the way up to the border through the Dakotas and over. So we're the largest geographical region, and we actually have the largest number of colleges in our region and the largest number of applications each year. So you'll all be nominated first by your universities. You'll have an internal application process, and that's true even if you've already graduated from college. Once you're nominated, then your application goes to the regional selection committee. We'll invite a cohort of you to interview. The interviews we expect right now in the autumn will be a hybrid model. We expect this, please do not hang your hat on this, but we expect that we'll have both physical in-person interviews as well as remote/Zoom interviews. Though that is TBD. Of course, this past cycle, we were all remote, and I think we all felt it went extremely well. And we would like to continue offering that option because we always do have a cohort of people who are living overseas, for example, who are in the Peace Corps or who are on a Fulbright or something, and for whom flying back to the United States to come to an interview would be quite burdensome. So we'd like to, again, to preserve that. And there might be plenty of people too, for whatever reason, be it COVID risk-taking or some other reason, who would prefer to have a virtual interview. And I can tell you now, as a selection committee chair, there would be absolutely no sort of black mark or demerit or something if you chose to interview remotely versus interviewing in person. And the only real downside is that you wouldn't get to hang out in the Consul General's house, which is too bad. But anyway, so that's the rough process. And I also want to stress that if you are selected to interview, the Marshall Scholarship Program does cover all the costs of that interview. So they cover your airfare and your hotel and food and taxis and whatnot. So you should never feel financially that you wouldn't be able to apply and an interview, that would be too much of a risk or you might not be able to afford it, because we absolutely want to make certain that there are no barriers of that sort to a promising candidate. So there's three rough buckets of criteria that we look for. The first is academic ability. The second is leadership. And the third is this amorphous thing that we call ambassadorial potential. So we'll go through those quickly. Academics, I think, probably are pretty transparent. I think everyone listening on this call has been on the hamster wheel, the treadmill for their life at this point, and they understand what academics means. But let me flesh it out just a little bit more. We do have a minimum GPA criterion of 3.7 unweighted. Typically scholars will be above that, but that's the minimum, and we certainly have accepted people who are right there. What we're really looking for, though, is excellence, academic excellence, where you just have taken whatever opportunities you've been given at your college and have just run with it. We're looking for course loads that show a lot of depth, that show a lot of breadth, that show you are developing expertise in your field. We're mostly looking for research. We're looking for people that have taken on additional projects, scholarly projects, that have become someone's research assistant, that have been in someone's laboratory, that have written papers that have been interesting and cited by people in your field. We're looking for people that are taking on things like independent studies and senior theses and things like that. We really want to see that not only have you just been scraping through with the bare minimum and gotten your degree, and yes, you've got a 3.7 GPA. We're looking for people who are just shining stars. And again, we index it to what's your college environment in general, what's it providing for you. And so people that have just taken the most of what they've been given and really run with it. That's what we'd like to see. The second category is leadership. Now, when you hear leadership, I think a lot of people think it's just like this very external thing. Like, look at me, I've been president of 5 organizations. And if that's you, that's excellent. But what we don't want to see is you've been president of 5 organizations, or you founded 5 organizations, and you've been pulled in 5 directions, and you haven't actually really accomplished anything with any of them. If you have been developing one particular program that's taken 3 years to develop, but it's an absolutely substantive achievement and you've really changed the world, that's what we want to see. And we also define leadership along lots of different axes. So if you are applying from an arts background, for example, we want to see people who have been staging really edgy, interesting productions that have taken current events and reflected it through the lens of your artistic discipline, that have been cited as leaders in your laboratory if you're a scientific researcher. You know, you've produced research. Your letters say, this is the person that we turn to in our laboratory when we have a tricky technical problem. This person, this girl, she came up with this amazing out-of-the-box solution, and now it's spread throughout our entire university or our discipline, and this is how all the labs do it now. That's what I mean by leadership, that quality of being a thought leader and someone who's really kind of blazing a path, someone whom other people really do listen to and learn from. And then the last is, again, the most kind of amorphous, I think, which is ambassadorial potential. So I think a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, this is a diplomatic scholarship. This is obviously funded by the British government and administered through the consulate system. So therefore, ambassadorial potential must mean like literally ambassadors. It must mean literally something about foreign relations. Oh no, I'm a computer science major, or I'm a dance major. I've got to start reading Churchill cables and write an essay on the special relationship. You do not need to do that. Do not need to do that. If you are an international relations major and you want to write an essay about Churchill cables, fabulous. But what we're really looking for are people who are going to be representatives of the United States. Always keep in mind, the Marshall Scholarship is really, it's quite different from every other fellowship you might be thinking you might be comparing it to. It is a diplomatic scholarship. It is affiliated with the British FCO. And you are going abroad as a representative of the United States. And so you have to think, what does that mean? You know, all of us, every single American, and I should say you must be an American citizen at the time of application. You cannot even be a permanent resident / green card holder. You must be a full citizen by the time you apply. So every American tells a part of the American story. We are a collage culture. We build our identity on a series of stories. So you need to ask yourself, what small part of the American story do I reflect? What am I going to tell Britain and Britons about the United States? If they meet me in a pub or they meet me in a graduate common room, what will I say and what story will I tell about the United States? We are also looking for people who can move, so to speak, in diplomatic circles. I spoke at the beginning about the unbelievable wealth of opportunities that are afforded to Marshall Scholars. And one of them is a peek at the inner workings of the British government. You will be taken to the Houses of Parliament. You will meet the British Prime Minister. You'll meet the devolved governments. You'll meet heads of state. You will, later in life, when you return back to the US, you will be affiliated with the British consulates. You might be asked to come to events there. So again, you don't feel like, oh, I need to be completely comfortable and savvy in that situation. It would be a very rare undergraduate student who's like, yeah, British Prime Minister, I can do that. But what we really mean is you can move in those circles, you can drink it in, you can take it in, you can, again, reflect the United States well in those circles. And that's you know, it's an amorphous quality, as I said, but people who have a sense of presence and a sense of self, people who know themselves well and who they are, they tend to shine with that ambassadorial potential. So as I think probably everyone has told you, we absolutely encourage you to apply. Speaking as a Marshall Scholar and now someone on the other end of the selection process, I can tell you it was an absolute watershed event in my life being selected. I'm immensely grateful to the British government for having selected me. And it's an honor of my lifetime to be able to sort of turn that around. So I'd love to take any questions quickly. Again, type into the chat or raise hand on Zoom.
Don't be shy. Yeah, anyone, please do jump in with questions. I personally just wanted to thank you, Jennifer, for joining us and for, I think across even the panels we've had already, there's been an overarching theme of not just passion for the Marshall, but what it's brought to different people's lives, and very much this focus on the whole person. So yes, we have our criteria and our buckets. And of course, the committees are looking for certain things, but they're also selecting people, and to bring your whole self to your application, to your interview, to this, what could be an amazing life experience, has very much been top of mind, and that we're looking for whole people, not a list of achievements.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, if you write an essay that's basically like, I would like to win this award because it is a famous award and I like winning awards, it probably won't go so well. And if you write an essay that's really just your resume in prose, that also probably won't go so well. What we're really looking for too, while people are thinking of questions, is someone for whom going to the United Kingdom and studying whatever particular program you've selected makes a great deal of coherent sense. That you can really sell us on, this is what I need to do for myself, for my career, for my vision, for my life, is this program at this university in the UK. This makes sense.